Please be advised, the following contains descriptions of violence and may not be suitable for all listeners.
Oh, it changed our lives forever. You can't really recover from something like that.
What is happening in our community is very terrible.
It's pretty much a war zone out there.
I was praying. I prayed because I felt like this was it. I felt like I wasn't going to make it.
South Africa is in the depths of a crime crisis. More than 6,000 people were murdered in the first 3 months of this year alone. Every day, new horrifying headlines spark fear in the hearts of all South Africans, adding more stress to their daily existence. This is A Criminal's Paradise, a 2-part podcast about a country being destroyed by an explosion of criminal activity at all levels around us every day of our lives. We're in Imbekweni, a township outside Paarl in the Western Cape. It's framed by an enchanting vista of majestic mountains. People are going about their daily lives, hanging up their washing, strolling along the streets in the bright sunshine, while children play outside. But there is a foul stench in the air which destroys the outwardly calm scene of rotting garbage and spilled sewage. It's here, next to a rubbish dump and a railway line, that we meet the family of Sipokazi Boy, a woman whose charred and dismembered body was dumped in a wheelie bin recently by her callous murderer.
I feel bad. The reason I feel bad, I didn't see in the body. So I can't forget now. Sipokazi not still alive. I think it was a good if I see the body there, then I can know this one is passed away.
That's Sipokazi's aunt, Nontando Boy. She raised Sipokazi and is haunted by her murder every day. Sipokazi's boyfriend, Situbele Gcwebe, has been arrested for the 27-year-old's murder. He allegedly killed her while on bail for allegedly assaulting her.
I fear a lot because I was just thinking that when he be out in jail, he will do it again to me.
She walks us to the crime scene, close to a small fire perched on a massive rubbish dump. It's a few meters from where the alleged murderer lived. His shack was burnt down by an enraged community, the empty plot now replaced by washing lines.
What we need is action, because we don't need tomorrow just we take the law in our own hands because of frustrating and be tired of what is happening in our community. Nothing has been done.
Bukiwe Lemani is a community worker trying to support Boy's family through their grieving process and the months of accused Gcwebe's court appearances that still lie ahead.
Nobody again to come and assist them that to the counseling regularly, but nothing happened. It was only once and finish. Then I said our government doesn't care a lot about us.
Ian Cameron, director of civil rights lobby group Action Society, has stepped in to help the Boy family through the court process.
We have thousands of detectives at police stations that have got more than 300 cases or dockets on their table at any given time. So it's impossible for any human to do effective work if you've basically got 300 projects on your table. And then imagine many of them are severely traumatic projects as well. And what then happens with sexual offences, and that's where Action Society comes in because we mainly focus on gender-based violence, is that many of these cases don't even make it to court because there isn't sufficient investigation done, or the investigation lacks many elements needed for it actually to reach court. So our conviction rate in South Africa for sexual offences, according to the Medical Research Council, is less than 5.3%, which is shocking. That means that we've literally got streets full of sexual offenders walking around freely because we don't have successful convictions.
Nontando Boy will face Gcwebe in the Paarl Regional Court in December. There have been countless delays since Sipokazi was murdered in September 2021, including the retirement of the magistrate presiding over the case. We watch Nontando receding in the rear-view mirror as we leave Imbekweni. She will walk home past the crime scene, a constant reminder of how life in South Africa claimed one of her own.
Now we've got 10 jumping jacks and go. 1, 2, 3.
In another part of Cape Town, we meet Leske Neethling. In the mountains above Cape Town's city bowl, she finds solace in nature. She's a personal trainer with a story that haunts her too. Leske's mother was murdered on her farm in Wellington after she picked up 3 casual workers from the eMbokwene township, the township we have just visited.
She normally went to Mbokwene in Wellington, and she got some casual workers there to work on the farm for the day or, do some landscaping. And apparently she picked up a couple of guys and they came to work for the day, but they weren't really, like we said, they were bad apples. And she just paid them for the day and said, you guys, thanks for the work and you don't have to come back the next day. The next morning they came into our farm and then broke into the garage, and 3 guys came with a knife and they stabbed my mom in the heart just because of that.
Leske's mother was murdered 17 years ago. Her killers were jailed, but recently released on parole.
It's changed so many people's lives, like in a split second. She was my best friend, so I'm grieving in a way that I will never have my best friend and the only person that actually knows me in this world.
Leske would play her mother's voice message on her phone obsessively.
I kept on replaying that voice of my mom over and over again for like at least a year. And that was sort of like my last bit of her, just remembering her voice.
Leske feels a sense of peace when she's in the mountains, but ironically it was there that she too became a victim of crime.
I was cycling and I had my head down, and then all of a sudden I heard this heavy breathing, and I knew it wasn't my breathing, and I looked behind me and there was this guy that I passed, and he already basically had his hands on my shoulders, and he took my shoulders and he threw me off the bike and fell on top of me. Luckily my instinct kicked in and I went into fight mode, and I grabbed the mace that I literally strapped onto my bicycle an hour before, and I threw him off me, and I sort of went for him and started kicking and screaming and shoved the mace in his face, and he ran off,
Leske had passed her attacker at the start of her bike ride and knew she'd be able to recognize him. A farmer told her he knew the man's name and where he lived.
The police came and we were like, let's go find this guy. We know exactly what his name is, where he lives. I want to identify him now because his face is fresh in my mind. And then the police said to me, well, unfortunately, we can't go after this guy because you haven't been raped and you haven't been assaulted, so there's no wounds on your body. And that was quite shocking actually for the police to say that, knowing that this guy did this, and we know where he lives and we can go and catch him before he does it to someone that doesn't have the same response than I would have had, because luckily I'm the one that fights, and some people freeze.
Police spokesperson Colonel Andre Trout told us it's concerning that Leske was turned away by police, and it shouldn't have happened.
We invite the victim to approach police management to lodge an unofficial complaint so that the circumstances surrounding the allegation can be investigated. The criminal aspect of the case also needs to be investigated so that the perpetrator can be apprehended.
Leske wants to put the incident behind her, but it has left her with little confidence in the criminal justice system.
It's lawless. It's the wild, wild west here, for sure. It's party time for a criminal in South Africa.
Janelle Latu feels the same way. She was in an abusive relationship for 3 years, and when she finally turned to the police for help, she felt let down. First, the case was withdrawn. Then, when it was finally reinstated, her docket mysteriously vanished. It turned up just 2 days after the media got wind of the story.
For weeks they were trying to get hold of this docket. Action Society stepped in. They were going there physically. They were doing calls, speaking to everyone, all senior members, absolutely nothing. And then we had the press conference, and 2 days later they magically found my docket.
Western Cape Police Commissioner Thembisile Patekile told News 24 earlier this year that he was open to meeting victims who had been failed by the police. He also said members are being trained on all fronts to be sensitive to GBV survivors. Janelle's story is a familiar one, and signs of her boyfriend's controlling nature inevitably escalated.
You know, it kind of started out as small jealousy. And for me, it's like we are taught jealousy is a natural thing. It's natural to feel jealous about your partner. Because even I had some jealousy when it came to him. So it started small, where it's like, I don't really want you talking to men on your phone. Then it went over to, he would want to leave love bites in my neck before I went to work. I would sit in the car with him and he's like, you're not going to work. I want to leave marks because people need to know that you're with someone. Then it was my manager's a male. He had an issue with that. Then it was I wasn't allowed to have any friends, male or female. Then it went on to he didn't want me around my family.
After 2 years, the beatings started. She alleges that her boyfriend's family, despite knowing about the abuse, did everything to protect him.
These women in his family, it's the mother, sister-in-law, and I feel like they enabled him. They really enabled him. They protected him to a certain point. And I feel even if his mother stepped in or tried to get him help specifically, none of this would have happened. Because they covered up what they did. They butter up every situation. They doctored me, looked after my wounds. So family in general, families, they protect perpetrators over victims.
But then there was a beating that couldn't be covered up. Janelle's boyfriend shattered her wrist, her ligaments were crushed, and she required emergency medical attention at a hospital.
When I got there, his parents arrived shortly. So his mother came, his father, his sister was there, and his brother. So his brother and sister left, his mother and his father sat with me, and we were sitting in the waiting room, and his mother told me, listen, don't say anything. We're going to deal with this when we get home. Let's talk about this when we get home. And he didn't want to leave me alone for a moment because he was afraid I was going to say something. Even when the nurse called me in to kind of take, my blood pressure, he refused to leave me alone with anyone. The doctor did say that he asked me, were you in a car accident? Because he said the severity of it was crushed my ligaments. He was trying to understand how someone of my age had an injury this severe. And he said, look, he's not trying to say that we're lying, saying that I fell, but it's just odd for him.
Janelle was terrified of staying, but more so of leaving.
I was more afraid of what's going to happen if I left than what was going to happen if I stayed. So I would never really say anything. He would never hit me in places where it was visible. I always had bruises on my arms, on my chest, my legs, all places that I could cover.
And with every beating, she believed it could be her last.
I was praying. I prayed because I felt like this was it. I felt like I wasn't going to make it. Because that's what he told me. He told me that today's the day I kill you, because I told you if you're going to leave me, this is how you're going to go. There's no other way.
Despite the terror she experienced, she did finally leave him in 2019, 3 years after meeting the man who had at first seemed charming. But the nightmare was not over yet, and he began stalking her. Then another woman contacted her, his new girlfriend, her face fractured in 3 places.
The way she looked, because I had a video call with her, I don't know, but I just had all this anger come over me because this is exactly what I was trying to prevent. Because I knew exactly what he's capable of, and yeah, and then after that, another one, in the space of 1 year, another woman that he impregnated, and he actually beat her to a point where she lost her baby. They wanted to give him a slap on the wrist with my case. And I was talking to the prosecutor and I was trying to make him understand, like, but I'm not the only one. I might have been the only one to come forward, but I'm not his first case.
When his other 2 victims came forward, the case was taken seriously, and finally the wheels of justice were turned for Janelle. The cases were rolled into one, and Janelle's former boyfriend now faces charges of aggravated assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm, attempted murder, pointing a firearm, and housebreaking. He is currently in jail awaiting trial. For Janelle, her permanent scar on her wrist is a constant physical reminder of what she went through, but the mental scars also run deep.
I went through a bad stage of depression as well. Sometimes the scars are not always physical, it's a mental thing. And even till today, I'm still seeing a therapist for it, and it's like 3 years later. I'm hoping that they make an example out of him. Mainly because people need to take gender-based violence serious. Like I said, it wasn't only me, it was other women as well. And I feel that I'm a voice for many women who was failed or silenced because of missing dockets and things.
Next, on A Criminal's Paradise, ordinary South Africans fight back.
My reason, I've said a lot, but my reason for getting involved is trying to impact that ground level decay that we're seeing.
I don't think the war is lost yet. I think that we've all got to fight harder, and we've all got to find ways to overcome this imbalance that allows the criminals to have such power over the majority of the population. We need to rise up against it.
A Criminal's Paradise was produced by me, Catherine Rice. Field recording and final mix by Bertram Malchus. Multimedia editors Charlene Root and Nokutula Manyati. Editor-in-Chief Adrian Basson.